Today on the Topping Show, Elon Musk tells advertisers who left Twitter X to go F themselves and he will not be blackmailed. Mark Cuban sells his stake in the Dallas Mavericks. Vivek on climate change agenda goes viral. The UAW deal to cost General Motors $9.3 billion. JP Morgan Chase CEO says businesses should support Nikki Haley for the Republican nominee. GM thinks their stock is undervalued and plans to do a stock buyback of about $10 billion. AWS and NVIDIA to team up for AI supercomputer infrastructure. Disney CEO claims that their legacy TV channels are not for sale, and Farfetch's stock crashes by about 50% last week. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Guy says he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of December, so if you click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have GM CEO saying that their stock is undervalued and they plan to buy back around $10 billion in their stock. Now, this as a company continues to struggle with not just the union ever exponentially increasing their cost of goods sold via the labor cost, but also their stock's been rudimentarily mediocre to say the least. When you look at the stock trends, we're going to look at the GM stock. In the past 5 years, it's down 16.05%. You look at the past 1 year, General Motors stock is down at 21.45%. Year to date, they are down 5.8%. Past 6 months, they're about the same, only down by 1.7%. In the past month, they're actually increased by 12.96%. Now, one of the reasons, and we'll dive into the article in a New York Minute here, but one of the reasons I'm a little pessimistic about this is because, well, their whole vision is EVs. The CEO, Mary Barra, is very adamant about competing with Tesla. And presumably she's not inebriated in any way. She's actually speaking with cognitive ability when she's saying these things. And Cadillac is on track to be full EV by 2030, with the full GM fleet to be full EV by 2035. This as the adoption rates for EVs, especially in the United States, are decreasing exponentially. People are buying more EVs, but the rate at which the adoption is dramatically decreasing. And a lot of people are starting to look into hybrids more often than not, which is why I think Toyota made a good bet when they started to invest so much into hybrid battery technology and building out that infrastructure. Although, my 3 cents, if you want a great ROI or a vehicle that'll last actually more than 7 years, one that'll last you a quarter of a century and 1,000,000 miles, I still just get a internal combustion engine with, presumably with 3 pedals, also known as manual transmission. Not only is it infinitely more fun, it's the best experience you ever have with an automotive, I would argue, but also good old-fashioned Japanese engineering. Those things will last, like I said, darn near a quarter of a century, 1,000,000 miles. My family still drives a 2001 Honda Accord with an inline-4 internal combustion engine. Thing's darn near bulletproof. Now, with GM, they are leaning heavily into EVs. That's not where the market is going. That's not what the consumer wants, but that's what GM wants. And EVs, for the most part, are highly unprofitable in the short term, especially as you do have to build out that infrastructure, and you have to have a whole new set of engineers, a whole new skill set you need to hire for. It's a dramatic transformation on the company. And GM is still losing money on most of the EVs that they're selling. GM is historically good at making a good old-fashioned V8. I mean, there's all those things where they may have not invented it, but they sure as heck perfected it in many regards. Well, especially when they had 3-pedal Camaros and Corvettes with manual transmissions. But I partially digress. Now, this news about the stock buyback comes from an old G website known as Yahoo, which used to be the Google of the day back in the day. Now, this comes from us from Baez Souza, who's the executive editor at Yahoo Finance, and Mary Barra, the CEO, claims that the shares of the auto giant are undervalued amid the future of profitable EVs that will be rolling out their manufacturing plants, and now's the time to buy their stock, which, again, it will take a long time. I suspect they might someday make a profit on EVs. Most companies get to that price point. Over time, you can make a profit on it, but there's going to be mounting losses. Ford is still losing billions of dollars on their Ford E series, or the division of Ford that they actually divided up for the EV category. Now, it looks like specifically last week they had news that they were going to do a $10 billion stock buyback and tacked on, and more importantly, a 33% increase in their dividends, which caused the news of the company stock to go up by about 10%. Now, dividends, that's a big deal for stocks. It's sometimes the primary reason people even invest in some stocks. Rudimentally speaking, if you're not into finance or stocks, and again, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm telling you to buy what stocks to buy or not, it's one of those instances where I think of it as the company rewarding you for investing in them. So usually, sometimes companies will pay dividends on a quarterly or a yearly basis. So every quarter, depending on how many shares of the company you have, they usually give a percentage of the company. So let's say you have 10 shares of GM stock, they're going to give it out 10 cents per share. That means you would get $1 in dividends from the company. It's a great incentive not just to buy their stock, but to hold their stock. Because again, if they're paying you to keep the stock, you're less likely to sell it. Now, Mary Barra also said, quote, "It's demonstrating our confidence in our strategy and our ability to grow, generate cash flow, as well as strong margins," unquote. Which, historically speaking, Cadillac is a very profitable brand for General Motors. And they have become more profitable as they moved away from subcompact vehicles. It's one of the reasons you've seen so few economic cars in the automotive industry. I mean, General Motors used to make the Chevy Cruze, which actually, a little biased, I owned one. I loved my little Chevy Cruze Eco with a stick shift. It was a fun car growing up. I was an adult when I bought it. But it got great fuel economy, had manual transmission. It was a fun little car. And it was an affordable price point. I believe I bought mine used with 4,000 miles for about $16,438, right about there. And for many people, it's a great entry-level vehicle, but all those vehicles, they lose money on. I remember when I was in the automotive community, it was rumored that the dealerships lost $425 every time they sold a Chevy Cruze. The only way they made money or broke even was with financing, accessories, and then the manufacturer would give you like a gift card if you're a sales rep to sell it for like $100. So they're not cash cows. So that's why it's not good for people who are trying to get an entry-level vehicle. Those vehicles are disappearing from the market. That's why the average price point in the U.S. is about, the average price of a new vehicle sold in the U.S. is about close to $52,000 in 2023. It's getting very expensive. Now, with GM, she also goes on to say, she reiterated a plan for GM to hit a low single-digit profit margin on EV operations by the end of 2025. And again, her plan is still to be full EV by 2035. And she says, quote, "I'm personally not happy where the share price is," unquote. Well, I wouldn't either. Under your leadership, it hasn't done great. I mean, I forget which specific year. I think it's 4 years ago. When did Mary become GM? Mary Barra become CEO of General Motors. And historically speaking, GM is also a pretty risky company. It's gone bankrupt about 3 times ever since Billy Durant founded the company by bringing together the old brands of Oldsmobile and Buick back in the day. He went bankrupt. He won the company back thanks to partnering with a French race car driver by the name of Louis Chevrolet. They built up Chevrolet to the point where he could buy back General Motors. Unfortunately, he lost control of the company again when they got bankrupt. And then very famously, they went bankrupt again in 2009, in part because of the 2008 recession, as well as the high cost of their labor, as well as a myriad of other legacy costs in terms of retirement and pensions and a lot of costs. So it looks like she became CEO in 2000. Can't be right, really? Was it 2014? Is time going by that quick? Yeah, she's been the CEO since 2014. And she made a lot of headlines being the first female CEO of the Big Three. Although, I don't know how many accolades they're giving her, because again, I mean, the 5-year stock trend is negative 16.13%. I mean, the other manufacturers are doing a lot better, at least in terms of their growth rates. Because I think I covered this when I was talking about the executive pay packages for the Big Three. The Big Three being Ford, Chrysler, aka Stellantis, and General Motors. And GM, over the 5-year plan, they've done the worst. So Ford, in the past 5 years, they've increased the value of their stock by 9.3%. As opposed to GM, they've gone down 16.13%. So I agree with her assessment that it is underperforming, especially compared to the market. But is it underperforming compared to the company? Is it really undervalued? That's really the big finance question. Are they making a silly decision? Now, this also helps reassure shareholders, because there's a lot of uncertainty with the company. A lot of people might be looking to sell GM, but if GM as a company is signaling, we believe this is a great price point for, we believe we're getting our stock at a discount because it's undervalued. And a lot of people poo-poo stock buybacks, but there are many reasons to do it. As I aforementioned, you got dividends in this case increasing, so that's a great benefit, as well as the fact that they're going to reassure their shareholders. They're saying, hey, it's undervalued, we're going to increase our stake in it. Which, again, like we just said, that news helped jump the stock by about 10% in a single day. So it certainly had an effect on the market. Now, it'll be interesting to see how much their stock increases or decreases in the next 12, 24, 36 months. Because, again, they're going through a huge transformation. They believe this is the future. I mean, that's not the dealerships and the consumers are saying when you look at the feedback on the adoption rates of EVs. And again, Tesla has a huge lead to get ahead of them in manufacturing capabilities, engineering capabilities. I mean, the odds are not in GM's favor. So let me know in the comments, do you think this is a good time to buy GM stock? I mean, it is historically at a discount, but there's a lot of rumors about a recession in 2024, a lot of economic uncertainty, political uncertainty. I mean, will some vehicles be taxed into oblivion? Will there be perhaps new tax incentives where maybe you get a 15 grand off your income stat or your federal taxes if you just buy an EV? The government's done it before. Will they maybe reinstate a new one to artificially push that market even further into EVs? So there's a lot of uncertainty, but it'll be interesting to see. But as I always say, time shall tell. Thank you everyone again for taking the time to tune in today. Please take the time to subscribe. We're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of December, and your support is greatly appreciated. Also, leaving comments is a great way to leave me some feedback on how I can make the show better and better and improve the quality. Also, and lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.